Nothing. Out of no materials, out of no gases, out of no matter, out of no space, out of nothing, He created everything. Think about it. Long ago, there was nothing at all. There was no universe. There was no sky. There was no sun. There was no moon. There's no stars. There was no earth. There wasn't even water. There were no planets. There wasn't any trees. No animals. No people. There was nothing. Nothing existed. Nothing at all except God, who's always existed. Isaiah 45:7. I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. Psalmist begins to write into us about thick darkness that God creates. And as you begin to look into the Scripture, God creates darkness. God created light. So we close our eyes, we think of nothing as just a blank, dark slate, but it wasn't even dark. I don't know if it was a white slate, a black slate, or just nothing. It's hard for us to comprehend that. But when you talk about the existence of God, He's always been. Even though everything we see, touch, smell, and taste and been around has always existed, God created all these things. God made some important things on that day of creation. Time, space, matter, and light. Think about it just for a minute. God, when He decided what He wanted to do, when He decided He wanted to make this world, when He wrote this plan of salvation to show His love for you and I, and we'll talk about the relationship side of this after we get past this physical part of creation. But as He began to bring these things together and He created these things, first of all, He made time. Time didn't exist. How can you measure how old God is when there was no way to measure? He created time. You may be surprised to learn that God created time Himself. Before then, time didn't exist. I was thinking about it the other day, and we were looking at pictures of Caitlin. It just seems like a few years ago when she was running around in diapers, and now she's getting ready to graduate. Let me see if I can get a tear or two in here. You know, Austin used to be a little bitty baby, and Justin, and all of a sudden now they're growing up and looking at all those baby pictures. But Caitlin was looking at one picture of her playing ball, and I said, that kid standing beside you, that looks like a little Justin Lyles. We got to look, and sure enough, it was a little Justin Lyles. They played on the same ball team when they were little, and we didn't even know each other back then. And you know, you begin to look at all that things, and man, something happens. It's called time. We were speaking to a little lady in Walmart, and she's gray-headed. She goes, I can't believe my son's 53 this year. She acted surprised. She goes, I'm only 45. I don't know how it happened. She goes, time's just flying by. Yeah, I get to thinking about it. I'm 5 years away from having all my kids out of school. I want to say cha-ching, but really, it gets more expensive the older they get. Caitlin has literally broke me this year. I'm serious. My wife wanted to go out and eat yesterday. I said, nope. Stay at home, got crackers. I said, we got a senior. Spencer's 15. He wants a car next year. Unless Avondale comes out with some money, I don't know. He's going to be on a bicycle, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you can ask Avondale for a car. Adriana, I'm sure she'll just carry a bucket and everybody give to her. She'll just smile and someone will give her a ride. Man, it gets expensive the older they get. But we're looking at those pictures, and I was like, I remember that. And they're little babies. Like Spencer used to be fat. That was my fat boy. And it just seems like yesterday. You know, time moves quick, doesn't it? But do you know, for God, there's not time? In fact, He had to make time so that He could make seasons and time frames, dispensations of time, where there would be law and then there would be grace, where there would be Old Testament and New Testament, times to put His plan into place and action. He had to create time because He's an eternal being. It didn't exist for Him. Before, in the beginning, there was no time. Then the clock began to start. He created space. Do you know that space didn't exist before then? Now that's hard to believe, isn't it? We think about how big the universe is. We think about how big this world is. And, they got the Hubble telescope and many other different devices, and they can look into the depths of space, and they think it's expanding because they can't find an end to it. Before God created, there was nothing. There wasn't any space. We think how small Earth is compared to this universe, how small our whole galaxy is really compared to the universe He created. But there was nothing out there before God. He created space. He created matter. This is what many people have a hard time with. There wasn't any matter, atoms. There wasn't anything. We look at the sun and the gases that make up the sun. We look at the stars. And we look at the materials that are out there in this world. We look at the element charts and all the things that we have, that things are made of and composed of. Different combination of molecules together forming different gases and different liquids and different things that we use. There was nothing. There was no periodic chart. There was nothing when God created this world. He created all matter that exists in this world. He created everything out of nothing. It's amazing to think about, isn't it? Because I can be given a chore, but I got to have tools for the labor, don't I? I can be given something to do, but you better give me something to do it with. Now, you don't have to give me an instruction book because I'm a man. But you just need to at least give me the materials to be able to build, right? He created these things. Think about it. There wasn't even water before then. The earth was just a molten ball of liquid that God's Spirit covered over. And there's a few things that we could point out there, a few beliefs that's there. There is a belief out there that God created just as Genesis goes through in that series and order. There's also a belief by some that there's a gap between verse 1 and verse 2. And when you begin to look in the Old Testament, we know Noah's days, people were judged by the water, and the water covered the earth. And we begin to read even in Psalm where it talks about the Lord had to hold back the waters from judgment. And we begin to see here now we see a world, but the world's covered in water. And some begin to say that, oh, okay, the world is billions of years old, and God created it billions of years ago, and there's a time gap between verse 1 and verse 2. And from there, they fit into that time gap. Satan's fall from heaven. The fallen angels coming down with him. They bring destruction to the earth. God has to destroy it with water. Then all of a sudden we come into verse 2. God created, and then all of a sudden we get to verse 2, but the world was without form and void, and water covered the earth in judgment. It's called the gap theory, and it gets very, very deep and things I don't really want to bring out this morning. That's the gap theory. The other theory is it's simply when He created it, it was covered with water. And literally, if you look into the time frame of the Bible, it puts the world at about 6,000 years old. There is creationists that can prove that in their theories. There's also science that says that it's billions of years old. But one thing that puzzles most people is this: how is there light? Let there be light. Then He waits till the fourth day to make the sun and the moon, and we know our light comes from the sun. He got things backwards. But you know what? Scientists, in trying to disprove God, actually prove that that's probably true. Because they say the Big Bang probably took place 15 billion years ago, but our sun did not take form until 5 billion years ago. But the light from the great Big Bang would have still illuminated everything throughout that period of time of 10 billion years until the sun was created and matter began to kind of join together and form planets and solar systems and galaxies. So actually, even in their attempt to disprove God, it even proves that there was light before there was sun by 10 billion years. The fact is, as we look into it today, time was not measurable. In fact, when you can look in Old Testament and Deuteronomy, you look in New Testament, both begin to state the days as 1,000 years unto the Lord and 1,000 years as a day. Do we take it 7 days, literally 7 days, like we have to us today? Or do we take it that it was longer periods of time? We'll find that out when we get to heaven, won't we? But the fact is, out of nothing, God created everything. So I bring you to this. God was the creator. Psalm 19:1 it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands." And I want to read again in Romans 1:20. "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. When we look at this world around about us, we can make up every excuse. We can kind of come up with every clever idea. We can look at everything as it relates to our lives and how we would relate to this world. And we can make all kind of theories and beliefs. But the fact still remains when we look at everything around about us, from the stars in the sky and the sun and the moon, when we look at the atmosphere that we have that has breathable life that we can breathe, that the earth tilts perfectly on its axis to provide us seasons and times so that we can plant, so that we can water, and so that we can grow, and then we can harvest, and then we can rest and start it all over again. When you begin to look how everything works in a perfect form, in a perfect fashion, when you begin to see that God made the beautiful green forest, and He made all the birds that are in the air that fills those trees and that flies through the sky, when you begin to look and see that He made all the oceans and all the waters deep and filled it full of all the fish that are there, when you take a vacation, when you think about it, we don't have to go hide from our planet. We actually get to enjoy our planet, don't we? When we talk about taking time off, usually we're going to go to a lake that God made for us, or we go to a beautiful mountaintop and camp out in woods. Or it amazes me how many people during this time of the year, when they get their deer stand ready or they get their duck blind ready and they're out there in nature, they begin to take pictures and they begin to say how beautiful this scenery is. Or get on a deer stand and you sit there in the calmness and the quietness of the afternoon and you begin to see the wild animals around about you and you begin to say, man, this is just wonderful and this is peaceful and great. That's because God made a place for you and I to enjoy. He created this world, and literally the book of Romans 1:20 says we have no excuse. When we begin to see all that God has provided for us, when you see how wonderful, man couldn't make the Grand Canyon and all the beauty that is there. Man could never paint a picture as beautiful as a sunset with the sky turning amber and the clouds glowing in the light of the sun is reflected from the earth. When you begin to look at those things and the moon, and how many watched that blood moon last week? I got up early in the morning time to see that eclipse as it took place and the moon turned red. I think there's two more that's going to happen in the next year or so. And when you look at those things and see how beautiful this world is, the Bible teaches us we have no excuse not to believe in God when all of nature declares His glory. When my dad's out there fishing in some slough somewhere, he's in heaven. There'll be snakes. And to me, it's not quite heaven. There's another word that starts with an H I think of. But for my dad, he gets out there and he'll get out there in the muddiest, nastiest looking place because he wants to be somewhere no one else is going to be. And nowhere else will go. He wants quiet. He wants solitude. Him, his fishing pole, the hum of his trolling motor, and the sound of that rod and reel. He's reeling them in. And as he's there, he's seeing how good God is. David Hicks and Autumn Hicks can't wait to get in the deer woods. I don't know what they're doing out there they're so excited about. But man, they can't wait to get to the deer woods. Got their deer stand up. David's so radical about it. How many remembers a few years ago? He took iron, had it all welded together, and made a fake hay bale. It had a door on it. He hid inside the hay bale to kill deer. I had too many allergies. I couldn't even get near it. But you know what? When he's out in his deer stand, he's surveying the land, watching the deer. If you look on Facebook, he's posted a video the last few weeks of little deer coming up to him. Man, it's exciting. It's wonderful. It's enjoying what God created for us to have. Summertime, it's hot. Man, it's just relaxing to jump off the boat and just sit in the water at the lake. Don't have to be doing anything. Just sit there in that water and relax. It's beautiful. Look at the trees and the cliffs and the rocks. It's just nice. What is it? It's God's glory being shown to you and I. One thing living in Northeast Arkansas, anywhere we go, we see God's glory compared to where we live. Only hills we see is the top of the interstate overpass. But how many knows it is beautiful when you begin to see that land change and the wheat matures, it's ready to be cut in May and April, and then all of a sudden you see cotton this time of the year fill the field white, full. It's beautiful in its own right. But man, to leave here and go to a mountain area and see those mountains, or to go to an ocean and just hear the water as it comes in and sink your feet in the sand, You guys ready for vacation, aren't you? We don't even have to have amusement parks and stuff, even though they're fun and a blast. But God has made so many things for you and I to enjoy. Isn't it wonderful? And when we see these things, it declares the glory of God. But it also teaches me something. These are things that man cannot make. When I went to California, it was my dream as a kid. I always wanted to see the redwood trees. We visited California back in 2003, and I got to take that tour and just go down through there and visit all that. Man, I loved it. It was great. I couldn't wait to take my kids and come and see it again. Beautiful seeing those trees and stuff. You just begin to think how awesome God is when you begin to look at some of the creations that He makes and how much glory is in those things. But you know what it teaches for you and I today? He did all that out of nothing. He didn't go to Walmart and buy seeds. He didn't go down to the local store down there and get fertilizer. He didn't go buy a plow to plow up the ground. Out of nothing, He created everything. You know what? There is circumstances in our life sometimes that we need some creative help with. There's times in our life when we look and we say, there's not a way out of this problem. There's not a way out of this situation. There's not a way out of what I've gotten myself into. There's no way I can meet my needs. There's no way I can go on forward. There's no way I can continue on. And we forget to look at the world around about us and realize God is so powerful that out of nothing, He created everything that there is in this world. And this morning, I hope you realize as we see that in the beginning God created, that you realize there's not a circumstance in your life, there's not an issue in your life that God cannot change, that God cannot make right, that God can't provide for or meet the need in. If He took out of absolutely nothing and made this universe, if He's that powerful, that knowledgeable, and has that much ability, then surely whatever issue that's in your life this morning, whatever problem you are facing this morning, whatever need you may have this morning, if He could make all these things, then surely He can move in your life, take care of the needs in your life, help you in this life, give you the instruction you need, the guidance you need, the help you need, the provision that you need. Surely if He can make this world, He can take care of me. And He can take care of you. David said, I'm old, but I was once young. I never seen the righteous forsaken, or his seed begging for bread. That means God can provide for you. No matter what your need is, God can provide for you. Why? Because He's the creator of all things. He made all things, made it for His glory. Now, let me put it in this perspective as we dismiss. In the beginning, He wrote this beautiful, beautiful story. The other night, my daughters had made me promise that I'd take them to Phantom of the Opera as it was in Memphis, and we went. And let me tell you, they don't just get up there and put on some costumes and say a few lines. The thing is decked out. The stage, the scenery. And you would not believe how they're able to take a small stage and make such a big story come out there. And a little piece of stage, not much bigger than this room here. I mean, they have the opera house, and then they have the downstairs area underneath it, and the areas over. Just amazing what all they can create in a small area. Offices opening and closing up, and different scenes. Chandeliers was falling from the ceiling, pow, exploding, gunshots, smoke, mirrors, the whole works. It was a beautiful, dramatic performance. And all that scenery just added to the actor's ability to act. Actors did a wonderful job singing. The musicians, the orchestra did a wonderful job playing. But all this stuff around that you could visually see, it just added to the performance. It made it exciting. It made it grand. It made it spectacular. When you've seen the smoke and the chandelier blow up, and you've seen all these things, and you hear that gunshot, and you jump out of your seat, it just adds to it. In the beginning, God wrote a beautiful love story, a covenant that He was going to make with His people, that literally His Son would come and die for you and I. But He didn't set it on a blank page and just say, well, I'll just read it sometime. He said, I'm going to watch this thing happen and take place, and I'm going to make the most beautiful backdrop for it. I'm going to make them look up into a night sky and see billions of stars as far as they can see. He didn't have to make the universe that big. He could have just made a planet. But instead, he made a universe so big just to say, hey, I want to make this thing spectacular for them to know my glory. When you begin to look at the size of the Grand Canyon, when you begin to look at the tops of the mountains, when you begin to look at all the beautiful things in this world, understand it's nothing more than the scenery to the play that God wrote before time began. The plan of salvation. It's here for you and I to enjoy. It's here to declare His glory. It's here to point to Him that He is God. And no one else could make what He made. No one else could design what He designed. No one else could form what He formed. Only God could do it. And He did a good job. Even He said it was good. And we've enjoyed it ever since. And we'll continue to enjoy it until He comes with new heaven and new earth. Amen? God created. And if He can create all those things just to fulfill that purpose, then realize whatever's going on in your life right now, whatever need you have in your life right now, whatever issue is in your life right now, He's God. He can take care of it because He can do anything, because He can create from nothing. Maybe you think your life is meaningless. Maybe you feel your life has no weight or value. He can take nothing and create this world. He can do that in your life as well. Stand with me this morning. In the beginning, God created. Maybe today is just the beginning for your life. Maybe today is just the beginning of you being able to say, Lord, I give my life to you so that you can do wonderful things with it. Can I just put it in this nature for you this morning? As beautiful and splendorous and glorious as this world is, God takes just as much pleasure in looking at your life as He does the beauty of nature. He wants your life to be that grand, that beautiful. And if you give your life to Him, He's the creator of all things. He has a plan for you. He can take your life and do great things with it if you allow Him to this morning. As we bow our heads this morning, we want to make an invitation. If you're here this morning, nobody's looking right now. Everybody's got their eyes closed. And if you're here this morning and you'd like to say, I want to give my life to God. I want to give my heart and life to Him and allow Him to move in my life. I realize He is God. God by Himself, and He can create and He can make all things, create all things. I need Him to do a work in my life. Make me new, create in me a clean heart, a right spirit. He'll do that this morning if you will allow Him to. You just maybe could raise your hand this morning so we could pray with you. Say, I want to accept Jesus into my life so that He can make everything new in my life. So that He can create in me the right spirit, create in me the right life, create in me something beautiful as He has in this world. Is there anyone who would raise their hand this morning and say, I want to accept Jesus into my life? Amen. Thank you. Is there any others this morning? Thank you. And we want to give these an opportunity. We want to pray with them this morning. Is there any others this morning before we move forward? And we did have two raise their hand. We're going to come to them for prayer this morning. I want you to know God can create something beautiful out of anything in your life. It doesn't matter where you're at this morning in your life. You may think you've made some wrong mistakes, and you may think, well, things just aren't turning out like I thought they were going to turn out. I want to let you know this morning, God can take you right now, make the slate clean, and create something beautiful. From this day forward, from this day onward, it can be a beautiful thing in God because you are precious in His sight. He wants to do wonderful things. We have two that raised their hand. We're going to ask them to come. We're going to pray with them at this time, and ask that you pray with us as they come. Amen.
To you,
you can come out your name.
everything
Kyle. This is Kyle and Brooke. Kyle and Brooke come before us this morning. We're going to pray with them. Some gentlemen, if y'all want to come in with me, some ladies here. But you just want to repeat after me, you can.
My days to you, lifting my praise to you as a living sacrifice.